Hello, Bill, Reedy, Susan, Dawn, Alice, Tony, the other baby. How are you all? Fancy speaking to you from this distance. Well, here I am, just the same old style, still in trouble. Anyhow, I'm feeling better, but my old legs won't carry me very far. But still, considering all things, I've been very lucky, haven't I? Hope you all keep well, and hope the babies get over the measles all right. Fancy them having that. It was nice to see Bill and Renee, I bet. It's his birthday this weekend, isn't it? I can't remember how old he is. Was pleased to get your letter all about your medal and all. Quite a professional at driving now, aren't you? And Billy learned through you, didn't he? Well, best of luck to you all, and God bless.
I think Bill's 34 now, isn't he, Bill? 1928 he was born.
George says Bill's 34.
Are you going to play now then?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Ready?
Yeah. Lovely. Are you going to sing something now?
Yes, this one.
All right, love. Hang on there.
When you're ready.
Right, yes, carry straight on.
Old friends will sometimes be parting. There's a saying, old and true. Though we may be every hunting, here's a wish from me to you. Good luck, good health, God bless you. That's all my heart can say. Good luck, good health, God bless you, and guide you on your way. No matter where you wander, as long as we're apart. Good luck, good health, God bless you and keep you, and keep me still in your heart. Oh, it's their tape, Queen's tape. Oh.
There you are then, what about that? You wouldn't think she was 86, would you? Blimmin' marvellous. There was just one thing wrong with that recording. I put the volume up just a little too much and you could hear the swish occasionally as the tone grew a little bit loud. But I won't do it again because otherwise it came through so clearly. Now, let me see. Everyone else is out at the moment, so we can't get any messages from them. Oh, yes. Yes, this story that I was going to tell you, Bill. Fellow, you can all listen, by the way, it's quite respectable. A stranger turned up at the golf course one day and went into the clubhouse, and he said to the man behind the bar, well, nice golf course you've got here, but he said, I can't seem to find anyone to play with. said they're already paired up. He said, can you recommend anybody? He said, well, usually the barman said usually gets like that about this time of year, you know, they're all paired up and away. He said, there's only one chap, that one sitting over in the corner. He says he doesn't often get a game because fellas think he's a bit queer, you know. But he said he'll give you a good game, a good player, if you don't mind that. So the visitor said, well, I won a game. He said, I don't mind. A bit queer. He said, I'll put up with that. It's the game I want. So he went over and asked this member whether he'd like to play, and the chap was delighted. So they went out and played 18 holes, chatted, found each other very congenial company, got on very well together, had an excellent game. So at the end the visitor said, well, I really enjoyed that, I'd like to play again sometime. And the member said, yes, oh yes, of course. He said, well, as a matter of fact, he said, I've enjoyed it so much I'd like more of your company. He said, are you doing anything tonight? Because I've got a party going on at home. I don't know whether you're free, whether you'd like to come. The visitor said, well, that's very nice of you. He said, I'm not doing anything actually. Strange town to me. I'd be very pleased. So I said, oh, well, you come along then. He gave him the address and the time to come. The visitor says, well, that's very kind of you. He said, well, just to give me some idea, put me in the picture. He says, what sort of party will it be then? He said, oh, usual, you know. He said, plenty to drink. And the visitor says, oh, well, that suits me. I like that. The member says, well, it'll be a bit sexy. I don't know whether you mind that. The visitor says, well, no. Sounds very interesting. Lead me to it. By the way, will there be many people there? The member says, oh, no, only just you and me.
Well, Queen, I haven't heard any word about Aunt Rose. The last I heard, she was very poorly, and she'd had that colitis again. And I was to have gone and seen her last Sunday, but however Edie and her family turned up, so I was put off. But I'm wondering if they would come and take me next Sunday. The old lady has been too poorly round there for Aunt Rose to go back to her flat, so I don't know whether she's back there or whether she's still with Harry. Our devils were writing, they won't ever drop a line that I don't know what's going on, so I don't know now if I'll see her Sunday, but as soon as I do and know anything about her, I'll write and let you know. Hope you and Tony are well, and business flourishing, and hope Tony's mother is better. Cheerio, and God bless.
I've been called upon to say a few words.
That was Isabel, by the way.
Hello everyone. Just left a little space for me. Not much news, soon be Christmas. Must close now and have a bath. Bye bye.
Hello, this is Isabel speaking. I'm enjoying a nice lazy morning at home because the boss is away for the day. Can't that do? Can't think of anything else to say.
Go on, keep talking, isn't it? Tell him you like your job.
I like my job.
Well, go on, I'm not saying everything for you. Fancy you suffering from nerves with all your experience.
I can't think of anything to say.
Go on, I like my job, I'm making lots of money.
I'm not making lots of money.
No. Well, say bye-bye then.
Bye-bye.
They don't all come.
And I'm afraid David and Sheila aren't available because they're away over at Sheila's place at Hill Head for the week. And then I believe they're going up to Winchester for part of the week. We don't often see old David down here. So that's about the lot for the family. You notice, by the way, we even got in the old front room clock. The time was exactly 10 then. Now we're coming near to the end of the tape, so I'd better start speaking more slowly just to make it last out. I expect it's going on for hours like this. The old garden's still blooming. We've got lots of dahlias still out, and I bought a standard rose bill. I went over to the nurseries and bought a standard called the Doctor. Beautiful smell, lovely silvery pink. I expect you know it. And for the front, I bought one of those sumac trees. Rus, they call them. And they come out in beautiful orange and red leaves in the autumn. and just over the hill around Purbrook and Waterlooville they seem very popular. I've not seen any in Portsmouth, but over there they're just a blaze of colour at the moment, and I believe they grow very quickly, so our front garden will be given over not to dahlias next year. Hello Queen, hello Tony, hello Bill, hello Rini, this is Grace speaking. I'm sorry we've been so long in making this tape again, but we've been busy as usual one way and another, mainly with the old choirs, and this is about the first chance we've had to get down to it. Mum says she's going to record in a moment when she's finished the washing up, so we'll get down to her in a minute. In the meantime, it was nice to hear from you, and we could understand parts of the tape, but there was too much background noise, I thought. On the second one that Bill sent, the 4-track, there was just one part, as I said in my letter, Bill, that came out very clearly indeed. I don't know where you managed to get hold of that, but it must have been a jolly good microphone. Got a bit of a cold, my head's stuffy. I've been on holiday this week, been busy out in the garden, been rigging up a trellis, and just about managed it in time. The weather's not so good today, but the first 3 days of the week down here have been really nice, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it, except that I stink of creosote. And now let's see what's been happening. Oh yes, the old lady who came to the door. I don't know whether I told you about the one I met at Christmas who wanted showing home, and we eventually ended up on the police box on Ports Bridge. Did I tell you about that? And then I took her in there because I was fed up with walking and she was nearly collapsing. And then when they searched her, they found she lived in Queen's Road, which is next door here. Well, we had another case about a fortnight ago. One Monday evening, I was just getting ready to go to choir, and this old girl came knocking at the door. She was all quite heavily dressed, and sturdy boots on, and a couple of bags, and she told me she'd come from Southampton, and the council here had half promised her a council house at Paulsgrove, and she'd come down to see what the lie of the land was, and she'd been walking around since 1 o'clock trying to find somewhere to stay for a couple of nights. Well, it was about 5:30 by then, so I didn't know what to do. I sent her to the old grocer over the road, thinking he might have a customer who could help her, but that was no good, so I took her around and about, including down to the local pub where they put people up sometimes, but nobody would have her. So I thought, well, poor old girl, she's been going around all that time, she must be nearly dead. So I said, well, you better come and stay with us. The only thing we can do is to put you up in the shower room on a camp bed. It's not very much, but it's better than roaming around the street all night. So she seemed very grateful and made a lot of fuss, held me hand and all the rest of it, and told me what a good man I was. Yeah. And I had to leave her with David and Sheila, and they gave me some pretty straight looks, because poor old David's always copping it in the neck, having to mind unwelcome visitors while the rest of us dash about our business. Anyhow, I went off to choir, and when I came back the old girl was still sitting there, and Mum didn't seem very pleased about it. She'd been out and she came back, and this old girl wouldn't take anything off. She still sat with her scarf round her head, and she had a top coat on, and underneath that she had a pink feather boa, and she just sat upright. So we started questioning her, and she didn't give much away, still told the same story, that she was going out to the council on the following day. And I said, well, there's no use roaming around like this. I said, you better go and do your business and then go back to your flat at Southampton. She told us she'd had a flat somewhere near the docks there. So, anyhow, time came for bed, and she fussed around a lot there. I had to keep changing the room round. She was very worried at the thought there might be thunder, and she kept showing us a news report in the evening news, and it just said something about fine day tomorrow with a chance of thundery rain. And I think this is what made her nervous, you know. And then she wanted to know what this so-called shower room was. It sounds ominous. Usually we call it the gas chamber. I suppose it's a good job I didn't call it that. So I took her up there and fitted up the camp bed. And first of all, she wanted it under the window, so I had to move all the furniture round. Then she didn't want it there, it might be too drafty. Had to have it in the middle of the room, so I moved the furniture round again. Then that wasn't any good, she had to have it against the wall, so I made a third change. And I'd put a little oil lamp up there because I thought she might want to see her way in the dark if she woke up in the night. Oh, she wouldn't have that. She didn't want oil there. She was afraid of fire. She wouldn't have the electric heater on for hot water in the morning. She was afraid of them. And she was pretty terrified of the old shower, wanted to know whether the gas was safe and all the rest of it. She didn't like it because there was no bolt on the window, although it was 3 stories up. So, oh yes, and then she wanted an extra pillow. So in the end we got her settled down. And I was saying to the rest of the family, well, you watch, she'll just go off tomorrow, do her business, and that'll be that. And old David said, you watch. He said, tomorrow morning she'll be ill. So, of course, sure enough, in the morning when I went up to see her just before going to work, she was moaning and groaning. She got up once in the night, and I heard her, so I hopped out of bed, you know, wondering whether she was going on the prowl. But she must have just gone to the toilet and then back again. And she was moaning and groaning next morning, saying she was too ill to be moved and all the rest of it. So I got a bit of time off from school. I went in, called the register and played for assembly, and then asked the boss to let me come back. And in the meantime, Grace had gone down to the police station, and eventually 3 policemen, a sergeant and 2 coppers, came rolling up the road. Oh, Grace said, for goodness sake, come in quickly. All the neighbours were looking, you see. So they went up there, and they were a little bit brusque with this old girl, wanted to know where she was, where she came from, and all the rest of it. So she gave them her name, and then it seemed to turn out that she hadn't come from Southampton at all. She'd come from Purbrook. So they said, well, where did you spend the last night? She says, oh, I spent a couple of nights here and a couple of nights there. So the old sergeant says she's one of these old tramps. She just goes around putting it on people. So I thought then, well, I don't know, poor old bit, she's had a night in with us anyhow. So she was too ill to be moved, she said. And the bobby said, well, you'll have to go down to the hospital. If you're so ill, the doctor will have to see you. He said, I'll send for the ambulance. Oh yes, and when I told her the police were coming, I thought I'd better not shock her too much with her sudden appearance. She carried on at me and said, what did I want to call them for? I said, well, they're friends, they'll help you. She said, they're no friends of mine. So of course by this time I began to get a bit suspicious. Anyhow, they carted her off. I had to go back to school, and one of the policemen said that he'd come back and let us know what happened. So in the afternoon he came back and he said to Grace, you'll never guess. So she said, what? He said, well, the old lady is safely back in her own flat at Weller House, Wingfield Street, which of course is just off Church Street where we used to live. So the old so-and-so hadn't come from Southampton at all. 5 minutes walk and I'd have been able to take her home if I knew where she lived. And she didn't seem dotty either. So all we can think was she was dead scared that there was going to be a thunderstorm, and she wanted to get out and with company. So as it happened, apart from causing the family some consternation, she was no bother really. She was clean enough and all that, but I'm afraid if we hadn't gone for the police, we'd have had a permanent visitor there. Now we've got another addition to the household. I don't know whether we had him when you were down, Queen and Tony. The little kitten, Fred, the stray. Well, he came about 6 weeks ago, and then took a week's holiday somewhere, and then came back again. And he's into all sorts of mischief. He's fallen in the pond, he's fallen in the bath, he's fallen through next door's greenhouse. Last night he was spent locked up in the garden shed. A couple of days ago, two of the girls a little way along were pruning the apple tree, and old Fred was up there helping them over their heads and resting on their bosoms at the top of the ladder. So he's quite another little character. Well, I think we're getting near the end of the spool. Remind me when we turn over. I've got a little story to tell you, Bill. I'd better leave room for other people to fill in some of the space. Bye bye for now.
Over and they got it back. See? Yeah. And then, blow me, last night it was out again. They come and got it back, and within an hour it was out again. And old Clyde next door, he come in, he says, I've killed that bloody ferret. He says, he did it with a fork, and then he smashed it with a shovel and chucked it over the chimney. Oh God. Yeah, yeah. Well, it got in their house and chased the cat and dog.
Oh, good God.
Well, you imagine if it got in on the baby's crate.
Oh, good gracious, yes. For the bit
One-
of the baby and
yeah, well,
it's
one of the
big enough
police-
to lie.
One of the policemen up there says that if the baby moves, it'll go for it.
Of course it will. What a good thing.